Okay, today I'd like to talk a little bit about the way a trigger in a recoil reset Citori, Browning Citori works. First, just a few of the parts. The trigger itself, of course. This is an adjustable position blade. The actual trigger mechanism is this piece that's back here. That's connected via a pin to this connector, or sometimes called the tree. And the tree's got some important structures machined into it. This is all one piece. The vertical piece you see here, and then there are two side pieces. So this piece and one just like it on the other side, that's what you use to fire the second barrel. First barrel is fired by this shelf that's machined in this vertical piece itself, and you'll notice that the piece above the shelf, the vertical piece above the shelf, is slightly forward from the vertical face of these two extensions, and that's done on purpose to keep the side pieces from engaging the other sear. So depending on whether I've got the selector set towards me as it is now or away from me to fire the underbarrel first, that will force the center shelf to engage either the sear on this side or the sear on the other side, and as long as that's engaged, the side pieces are held away from their respective second sears. Okay, I'm going to put the gun, I'm going to cock the gun now. So taking the springs out so we can do things nice and slowly. Take the gun off of safety. Again, it's set to fire this near sear first, which is the over barrel. Now this is a strut that's simply guidance for the inertia block. The inertia block spring just retains the barrel selector in position. This blade from the barrel selector fits in a slot on the top of the inertia block, guides the inertia block backwards and forwards, and also pulls the inertia block away from the sears when it's in the safe position. So let's go ahead and fire the gun, as again it's set to fire this near hammer first. I pull the trigger and that center piece on that connector lifts the near sear. Of course there are springs in the gun, this will be driven forward. Fire that over barrel. The recoil from the gun happens while I still have the trigger held rearward. So the trigger comes back, the gun comes back, the gun stops, the inertia block does not. Inertia block moves back and allows that first sear to drop down and out of the way. Now under spring pressure, the inertia block returns forward, and right now that side extension on the far side is resting on the back of the sear. When I let go of the trigger, it drops forward underneath the sear and allows me on the second pull of the trigger to fire the gun second barrel. So the underbarrel just fired, gun recoils again. As I let go of the trigger, this is a final resting position. So let's take a look and see what that looks like from this side when we fire the far barrel first. So I'll cock the gun here again. This time when I pull the trigger, it lifts that far sear on the center shelf of that connector. That hammer is driven forward, gun fires, recoil occurs, and you'll notice now that this side piece, the vertical face of the side piece, is on the back of the sear. And this is where people get in trouble trapping the trigger. Right? If I let go of the trigger just slightly, it doesn't allow that side piece, that side shelf, to drop under that second sear. Pretty much have to let go all the way to get it to drop underneath. Now there's just a tiny bit of free play in there, but not very much. So now a second pull of the trigger, once that reset has occurred, releases the sear on this side, allows that second hammer to move forward. Gun recoils, reset occurs. So let's take a look and see what happens when we don't have a shell in the gun, or we're dry firing, or our shell didn't go off. In this case, I fired the first shot, hammer goes forward, but without recoil, to pull that shelf, that center shelf off of that first sear, the first sear is trapped on top of that by spring pressure from the sear itself. So I can re-pull the trigger because it's against that vertical portion of that first shelf, that first sear. It will not engage the second sear. That's why you can't fire a recoil reset gun if you have a shell that doesn't go off, or you forget to load that barrel, or you're dry firing the gun. So bumping the butt on the ground, or even moving the selector back and forward allows that first sear to drop out of the way. Now the second barrel can be fired.